Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
It is cold, it is gray, it is dark in Boise, Idaho, and perhaps that is fitting because in just 2 days, less than that, Bryan Kohberger, the man who was accused and now admits to killing the 4 University of Idaho students, he's going to be sentenced at a courthouse just about 2 blocks from where I'm sitting, and we're going to bring all of that to you live. Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. This is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. You just heard from the retired Pullman police chief, who then went on to work at Washington State, where he is the police chief, and he's retiring completely come August, but just filled us in on what was going on with the investigation in both the months leading up to the arrest of Bryan Kohberger and after the fact. Well, when this was all going on and we were still kind of in the dark about exactly what was happening, we spoke to some people in the Moscow Pullman area, and tonight they are back to give us their reaction to all the developments over the last few years, the brutal developments. Cindy Hollenbeck has always been nothing but unbelievably kind and sweet behind the scenes. She is here from Pullman. Linda Moser joined us last time. I'm blue, she's green. We're getting all the colors of the spectrum. And last but certainly not least, you have Amanda Johnston in the house, who lives very close to that hiking trail where, if you watch the Dateline episode, people said they saw Bryan Kohberger there and went on to say that he seemed pretty creepy. So let's start with this. I mean, Cindy, this has been a long time coming, going back to November 13th of 2022. And now we're at July 21st, 2025, almost 3 years. What has this experience been like for you in Pullman as a former Moscow resident? It's a small community. I mean, I land in Boise. I'm a guy that grew up in New Jersey. I worked in New York. I worked in D.C. I live in Miami. And I'm like stunned. Like the guy at the front desk at the hotel wanted to walk me to my room. I thought it was like, I didn't know what was going on. I thought he was going to rob me. And then I realized, no, I'm in a different part of the country where people are actually nice. So you guys aren't used to this sort of thing happening. What's this experience been like?
It's interesting you brought that up, because my whole thing was right when it first happened. I remember, I got the vandal alert that said, a unconscious person, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And then we got the alert with the 4 homicides, and it's true, we're supposed to do it, but a lot of people don't lock their doors around here. And after, I just got this really creepy image in my head of like the Scream movie, and turns out that's basically what it was. Like I was absolutely terrified. And I've been following it because we're local. I mean, I am interested in true crime anyway. I especially like the prosecutors setting up the case and letting the bad guy go, to prison. That's my favorite part. But this was so different because there's this place in Moscow called the Ale House. We eat there a lot. And I went with my daughter and her best friend, Emma, right after this happened. And it was Thanksgiving, like the day before Thanksgiving. And we were standing in the ale house, and I just kept looking around because I was like, God, that freak could be in here. Like it was a really terrifying experience. And even though I live in Pullman, and I know that you know this, Joel, and probably all of your viewers that have been following the case, Pullman and Moscow are a community together. Like we're separate, but we're the Palouse. And every time I would drive from Pullman to Moscow, I would get the hair on the back of my neck standing up, because we just didn't know where the hell this guy was. I mean,
yeah. We didn't know where he was. We didn't know who he was. Amanda, to you, I don't want to profile, but you appear to be the youngest of us.
She is.
I would say, yeah. Did you go to University of Idaho? You did. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I apologize. I'm a bit delirious, but the fact that this hit so close to home, what was the impact of that on you? I mean, I remember, I'll just say this, I'm living in Miami Beach with my wife and my kids. And after this happened, I mean, we live in a very quiet community. I grew up in a very quiet community. I never thought about locking my doors, but I didn't feel comfortable in my own town, 3,000 miles away, leaving my doors unlocked. What was it like for you?
Yeah, essentially the same thing. So I actually was technically going to U of I with all the kids. Graduated 2021. So everyone was kind of getting off of the pandemic train and into back to reality of what in person looks like. You're kind of getting that vibe of, oh, everyone's getting comfortable again. But then, yeah, this happened. And I moved right after graduating all the way out here to Colfax. I even locked my doors. Moscow did not lock doors ever. Car doors, front doors, any doors unlocked. After this, I think everyone started taking those extra steps of caution. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, did you, Amanda, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think that this guy would be a graduate student at Washington State University?
You know, yes and no. I think there was an odd sense of relief that we're like, oh, okay, he's not from here. Like we all just kind of were like, oh, all right, because really we what Cindy said, we were all like, oh my gosh, what if he's in the room with us? Who could this be? Because we are a community. We don't commit murder like that. That's it was just so extreme. Yeah, so we really as a community were shocked, and not just Moscow, but really it was the Palouse as a whole. In all honesty, it was Moscow, Pullman, and all the way out here in Colfax, maybe even Lewiston.
For us who are not locals, explain what the Palouse is. Is that like an abbreviation? What is that?
Yeah, so the Palouse is essentially a whole bunch of rolling hills of canola, basically, and wheat. And smack dab around all that is Pullman and Moscow. And so when we say community, we mean like the two towns in the middle of nowhere. So we really connect from town to town. Yeah, it's the whole Palouse, the rolling hills. It's all the little towns out here in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
and a lot of wind.
A lot of wind.
Yeah, a lot of wind. Linda, when you learned finally that it was this guy from Washington State University almost 3 years ago, did you feel like, I'm talking in the immediate moments, did you feel a sense of relief, or were you thinking, because if you guys remember, and I asked the chief about this, they reported that Bryan Kohberger's first question was, did you arrest anyone else? So a lot of people at the time thought, well, maybe he did it with someone else, and maybe there were other killers out there. And we all know that there's a lot of conspiracy theorists in this world who maybe still believe that. But after the arrest, did you feel comfortable, or was it like the shockwaves were still reverberating through Moscow Pullman?
I felt quite a lot of relief. I do remember seeing the very first photo of him on the news, and I just stood across the room staring, and it just was a surreal, I'll never forget that moment of where I was standing in the house when I looked at this broadcast of him standing with it just looked like a vest of some kind. I almost thought, is that a bulletproof vest? What is that? And it was a bit of a feeling of relief that we know who he is, because I thought, is this a serial killer that came through this area and did this? Because this just does not seem like it fits with this community at all. And I work at the University of Idaho, and it was just shocking to the entire Vandal family. We call it a family because we are just that. We embrace each other, and we, have empathy with each other. So it was a relief, but it was also kind of shocking and frightening. And it's been a little bit disheartening hearing people talking about, oh, well, Moscow is got a lot of crime and we don't want to send our, students to that university. No, this crime had nothing to do with the University of Idaho. It had nothing to do with anybody's failure on any part, and we're still trying to understand the reasons, the motivation behind this. We still don't know that.
Here we go. Also in the Palouse are the Camas prairies, where Native Americans dug Camas bulbs. They're called Indian potatoes. Now most of the areas, wow, it's amazing. By the way, the first sign I saw in the Boise airport was try not to think about potatoes while you're here. And then I immediately thought about potatoes. And I might have to have a potato later because I'm starving. So, you know, Linda, back to you. How is the University of Idaho, I guess, not only changed, but sort of adapted with all this news that has trickled in over the last few years? And in no ways is closure, but it looks like they're going to send this guy to prison for the rest of his life. Has the University of Idaho been able to recover in any way?
Well, we've recovered in the terms of we're looking for, justice for the victims first and foremost. I've been to the memorials for the students. They do have a beautiful memorial garden on campus, and I've been to that. I watched the dedication of that, and it's just a wonderful, reflective place. I just think that this is going to be an ongoing thing with healing, because it has changed the community, not because we're in the terms that we're like more afraid of crime. We're just more aware. We just feel what these families have been going through, and we have such empathy for them, and we have so much care. But they also have increased the presence of security on campus, like more visible, even just because people were uneasy and unnerved, and they didn't want people to feel unsafe. So they did increase that presence. And we already had safe campus like numbers you can call, and you can even get escorted to your car if you want to. If at any time, it's the campus security has always been a high priority, but it just became more visible, more apparent, just to help people feel safer and better. And that was helpful.
And this comment here is really interesting, because the Poconos is a very sleepy, quiet mountain town in rural Pennsylvania, almost like where you guys are. And Gia and TJ's mom says, I remember finding out this guy lived 30 minutes away from me in PA and grew up there. By the way, Albrightsville is also a small town close to the Poconos, so he knew to hide in plain sight. There's talk that there's no way this was his first crime, but no indication at the same time that anything else. There is one woman's kind of murder that remains somewhat mysterious, that I'm sure that they are looking at. But yeah, it was really sort of an exceptional crime. I mean, this is a crime that, they'll be talking about for many, many years, probably to Bryan Kohberger's pleasure and the dismay of everybody else's family. But Cindy Hollenbeck, to you, jumping ahead now, was a week or so ago that we find out all of a sudden, after literally 2.5+ years of Ann Taylor filing every imaginable motion and just creating chaos, which is her job, and sowing doubt. Suddenly, it turns out the defense apparently approaches the prosecution, and the prosecution cuts a deal. When you heard that, did you have to do kind of a double take?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I was at work, and Linda sent me a YouTube of some lady who looked absolutely insane. And she was like, her background was really weird, not subdued and nice like yours. And she's like, Kohberger's took a plea. And Linda's like, do you think this is real? And I said, I'm not
believe it.
Yeah, I said, I'm not believing anything until it comes out in the news. And literally 2 seconds later, Linda sends me a big F word in the IM, and she's like, look, and it said Kohberger takes a plea. So Yes, I was absolutely shocked, and I'm going to give you a couple reasons why. But also, I work in a really small suite, and my boss was going to be on tonight, but she's on vacation, has bad internet. But I said, Chanel. So she comes over, and I said, look, so I'm not kidding. This was at about 3:30 in the afternoon. Immediately, I start looking around, and Joel, you went live. So for the next 2 hours, all I did was watch your show, because I think, yes, I was shocked. But the thing was this, and I've said it a number of times, so now I can say I was absolutely wrong. I thought that little coward was never going to admit it. Like I just literally thought the way he's been such a tight-lipped chicken all of this time, and no, I didn't do it, that when he agreed to a plea, I was like, wow, I need to take some classes on, understanding human behavior, because I really got it wrong. I just never thought he would admit it.
Yeah. Shout out, by the way, to the COE and Joe Patuto, the professor, for handling Stefan Stearns today, another monster
Right.
who today took a plea deal. I still don't understand. It was a no contest on the murder of Matty Soto, but he pled guilty to really horrific sexual crimes against 13-year-old Matty Soto. May that guy rot in hell. That guy is a horrible human being and just a scourge on society. But I'm glad that was that ended in a plea deal. Two different types of evil. And if you watch Phil Waters, the homicide detective on my show on Fridays, he's investigated over 400 homicide cases. He knows the vast majority of people are good human beings, but there is evil in this world. And if there are two evil people, it is Stefan Stearns and Bryan Kohberger, just horrible human beings that are a stain on society. Shout out to Adam Malone, who's in here. He and I were fighting all weekend on X, but I guess he's a better man than me. And I appreciate the debate back. We were arguing about Ellen Greenberg, but obviously we agree on everything Bryan Kohberger related. And there will be people who are conspiracy theorists, like I said, who come out and say that it was someone other than Bryan Kohberger. And if you say that, you got to, as Steve Cohen would say, get yourself a checkup from the neck up, because this guy is admitting everything. And he's so out there. I would not be surprised if there was some last minute curveball coming our way on Wednesday, but we'll see. Not to get political, but this is the president of the United States today. I'm going to bring this up from Donald Trump on Truth Social. Bryan Kohberger, who was responsible in Idaho for the deaths of 4 wonderful young souls, has made a plea bargain deal in order to avoid the death penalty. Don't think that needs to be capitalized, but that's just me. These were vicious murders with so many questions left unanswered. While life imprisonment, I don't think that needs to be capitalized, is tough. Isn't that funny? You can be president of the United States and have no idea about grammar. While life imprisonment is tough, it's certainly better than receiving the death penalty. But before sentencing, I hope the judge makes Kohberger, at a minimum, explain why he did these horrible murders. There are no explanations. There is nothing. People were shocked that he was able to plea bargain, but the judge should make him explain what happened. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The feeling that the president probably just learned about this today. But Amanda, what about that? I mean, there's a thing called an allocution, which is where, in this case, the killer, Bryan Kohberger, can get up there and make a statement. Are you expecting that? I mean, are you expecting him to say anything nice or comforting, or is this guy just an animal that's going to remain silent, Amanda?
He's an animal that's going to remain silent, unfortunately. I think he has a little bit more of an intellectual detachment kind of influence from his education and, honestly, whatever is going on in his mind. But I think he's kind of more of a clinical view in life because of this education. And with that being said, I don't think he's ever actually going to put feelings out there. I think it's all for him, and he's going to say what he wants to say when he wants to say it.
Yeah. And Linda, how about you? I mean, would you like to hear from Bryan Kohberger on Wednesday?
I would like to hear from him. I don't think he's going to say anything on Wednesday. I think he is eventually going to talk a lot. I think he wants to be the one that, I'll tell you how it is now. I studied this and now I'm living it and I am it. And he's going to want to be somebody that they come to for answers. And, can you help us with profiling? Kind of like a Silence of the Lambs kind of a thing. And I think he's going to want to be interviewed and talked about. I just think it's almost like he feels like it's his reward for doing this. He doesn't have a moral compass about what's right and wrong. Intellectually, he knows this kind of thing is wrong and bad, but he doesn't feel wrong or bad about it, I think. I just think, I like what you said, Amanda, about him being clinical. Yeah, I think he's very clinical, very sterile. Robotic is the way I've heard him described. Blank stare. And it's kind of horrifying, but I think eventually he's going to want to say something. I just don't think he'll do it in court because he's not in control there. Being in control is the most important thing to him.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
Joel?
yeah.
So I want to ask you guys, and Joel, I mean, we watched it. I'm sure I watched it on your show, but I noticed that during the hearing, he stared straight ahead the whole time until Bill Thompson read all the evidence. And then he stared at Bill Thompson. And all I kept thinking of is, this is from watching so much true crime, is that as Bill was retelling of the evidence, Bryan was reliving this, like he was fixated on him. And I could almost see him checking every box. Yep, did that. Yep, did that. It made me sick to my stomach. And then once Bill stopped talking, Bryan went straight back to whatever world he lives in.
And you know what? That's an amazing point. That's why I pulled up this comment from Janet True. Nothing truer ever said than this. Dr. G says the only reason he would want to talk or even attend is to hear about his mistakes. It would be the only thing that bothers him. And that's exactly what you're saying. He was probably going through a checklist. I did all these. Can't believe I left the knife sheath, blah, blah, blah. It just, I mean, Linda, to you, it's hard for quote unquote normal people. My father, may he rest in peace, said there's no such thing as normal, but people like us who I think have a degree of empathy and humanity, it's hard to understand how someone like him cannot feel the same emotions. How do you process that he probably doesn't feel badly? Like, I have raised my kids to feel bad about stepping on a bug, and they won't do that. Now they'll, if we see a wheel step on a cockroach, but I won't even kill a cockroach. I have to wrap the thing up in toilet paper or whatever and throw it out. How does this guy, do you think, how does his mind operate so differently than your mind?
I think that's one of the reasons why this is such a fascinating topic of study. And I think it might have been during a guest that you had recently, Dr. G, when he was talking about studying of serial killers. And I think one of the questions asked was, gosh, I'm fascinated by studying serial killers. Does that make me kind of suspect? And maybe I have some dark impulses in me? No. And I thought the answer of your guest was very good. It said, no, because we want to have a world that's predictable around us. And if we kind of understand something, we can be prepared for things. And it's one of those mysterious things that we want to study. I think that people are going to want to study Bryan Kohberger because it's so incomprehensible, the magnitude of what he was able to do. And then just raise his hand up and stand there just so skeletal looking, and not, his voice didn't shudder. He didn't even blink. How does a human being do that? Is this another part of human behavior, or is this just, it seems inhuman to us, but yet here he is, a human being doing it. So yeah. I think we just want to understand, and that's why we study and delve into these things.
And Cindy, to you, I think, one of the things I grapple with, again, I don't want to see anyone killed, under any circumstances, but I go back and forth about prison justice here. And by the way, speaking of prisons, you guys all know how much I love prison. Tomorrow, I was actually invited out to the IMSI, which is the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. So I'm going out there tomorrow with some other journalists, and we're going to have something special for you tomorrow evening, I'm hoping. And it's going to be an interesting look at where he is going to spend the rest of his life. Would you want to see prison justice exacted in this particular situation, or do you just want him to rot away and kind of disappear into oblivion, which will eventually happen? I mean, just take someone like BTK. How often do we hear about him? Not very. If there's something, they dig up some bones and that potentially is tied to BTK, which happened a year and a half or so ago, his name's in the news. But other than that, you don't hear about him. And he is physically rotting away in a prison, barely able to walk, has lost his teeth, all these sorts of things. What do you prefer? And I'm not saying prison justice is going to happen, but it is certainly a possibility in a case like this.
Well, you know, one of the reasons I'd reached out to you a while back was because in the Dateline episode, this young woman said, Keith Morrison asked her, like, so people around there still talk about this? She goes, no, we just kind of ignore it. And I remember getting so mad and yelling at the TV going, I don't know who she's talking to, because everyone in my crowd, we are always talking about this. And the day that the plea came, I went over, there's one guy that works in my suite, and I went over and I said, what do you think about this? And he goes, I give him 5 years. And I thought he meant 5 years he would appeal and he'd be out. And I said, 5 years? And he goes, oh yeah, someone's going to shiv him. Like, so he was being facetious, but it's great, right? To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be worse. You know, this former law enforcement buddy of mine said, you know, he's going to be covered in cockroaches and bugs. It's going to be so gross and so disgusting. He's going to be in absolute hell. And then I think about Steve Gonzalez, and I think about my daughters who are grown-ups. They're my best friends. We talk every single day. I love them. I'm getting emotional. And if someone did this to my daughter or my son, but like, I mean, I don't know. I hope that he's absolutely freaking miserable. If he does live like Creech, 50 years on death row, you know what I mean? Yeah. I really hope that Bryan is miserable, but going back with what Linda said, this kind of personality, and some of my local friends have said, like, what's he going to do in there? Is he going to get his PhD finally? Is he going to use the library? Is he going to make the best of his time? It isn't fair, you know? So I don't know. Because I don't think he's even going to be in Gen Pop for 2 years? At least. But they can, you know, there's ways to still get to him. And unfortunately, I'll have a better idea tomorrow, because we're getting a tour. So keep an eye out for that. But Amanda, to you, Ethan Chapin, we're looking at the photos here of the victims. He was a triplet. So now the two others have to go on. Kaylee Gonzalez, we know how upset her dad is, which I want to ask you guys about. Xana Kernodle, her family is not happy about this either. Maddie Mogan. I mean, when you look at their pictures, and by the way, shout out to Snap Happy, who gave a super chat saying she wants prison justice. And I don't judge anybody on these cases. It's so personal that it's up to each individual. But when you look at these photos, I've said this about my dad. You know, my dad passed away 2+ years ago, and I've had moments where I've sobbed, but I feel like I need to do it more often. I haven't had a moment where I've broken down with these four, but I keep a bracelet with their names on it that were being distributed. They were black with yellow letters when this first happened, and I keep a couple of those bracelets on my microphone in the studio back in Miami, just as a reminder. When you look at these photos, what is your response internally?
A lot of things. I look at them and I'm like, my heart hurts, but then I look at them and I'm like, wow, I totally relate to them, because I've lived that life. And gosh, they live such a great life. You know, look at them, like all beautiful, smiling, happy, you know, and they deserve so much better. So you can't help but get so frustrated, because they did not ever deserve this. And it's just, it's hard, because I've done the things that they've done at that age. You know, we walk around downtown Moscow, we walk around campus. I see them, and I hope the family knows that not a day goes by that Moscow doesn't think of them. I mean, really, I think of them every dang day, and I know that Moscow does, and that's never going to change. They're always going to be a part of Moscow's heart.
And Amanda, you know, we've had Howard Bloom on, who wrote a book, When Night Comes Falling, about this case. He believes Maddie Mogan was the target. Do you have any theories? Do you think he was stalking one of them? Do you think it was Maddie? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, my personal theory and my educational theory, because I did go to U of I for sociology and criminology, it does tell me that Maddie was the target. And with the amount of victims, it does also say that he was not expecting Maddie to be so involved with everyone and everyone to be so involved with each other, you know? The fact that they were next to each other in each other's beds, he has no idea what that feels like, in all honesty. Yeah, so I do believe Maddie was the victim, number one, but in all reality, I mean, they all are victims, and Moscow feels it.
Linda, Steve Gonzalez recently went on, and I've been so busy, for full disclosure, I don't know all the details of what he said because I haven't actually been able to watch the interviews, but I know he talked about additional information that Kaylee was beaten really badly beforehand, which just pours salt in the wound. Your reaction to that, and just looking at her photo here, and everything that she could have been and done in her life is never going to happen now.
It's truly incredibly heartbreaking, and it's terrible when you hear these details that are coming out a little bit at a time, and I'm sure more of them are going to come out. But I just think the violence that was perpetrated against her was because she wasn't expected to be there. A lot of people theorize that he didn't plan on her being there. And when he found that she was, he had to do something to eliminate her, and she tried to fight. And I still think we haven't heard all of the details about that. Not that I want to hear the details, but I think the families deserve to know what happened. I think they need to know every single wound, every single thing that happened. And I wanted to do my part to try to stand up for the families in December 2023 when they were getting ready to knock the house down. I was there the night before. I ended up on a few of the news channels, and the next day I was going to go there and protest. And it was by the time I got there, that big excavator the house splintered in nothing flat. It splintered. I wanted to try to stop, but I understand kind of there was a reason that it came down. Part of the reason was so much of the house had been dismantled from the inside. Floors, walls, pieces of the house were taken out as evidence. And it's like, you can't even walk through there without the floor falling in. And they're like, the evidentiary value was removed from the house and it just wasn't really necessary anymore from what I understand. But yeah. I didn't know that at the time. I wanted to try to stop them from doing that.
I thought that was a huge mistake, and it also feeds into the conspiracy theorists who think that the university is trying to cover it up. But Cindy, no one's looked at these pictures probably more than you. When you look at them now, what's your first thought?
They're actually my wallpaper on my computer at work. When I first started working, so I've worked at WSU 12 years, but I just started this new position in December, and in the suite, somebody had hung up, actually, I have it right here. Somebody hung this up on the window, and then my boss took it down. I don't know if someone was upset about it, but like, I care a lot. I look at these guys every single day. They're on my wallpaper. And by the way, I know you can't see it, but the shirt I'm wearing, it says Vandal Strong. This was done by somebody who has a ancillary relationship with like Xana's family, and before Kohberger was caught. So like, this happened in November, and they were doing a fundraiser, and so they were selling these shirts, and on the back they have each one of their sororities and fraternities, and it was just a fundraiser, and it doesn't fit me right or anything, but I wanted to wear it tonight because this was before we knew who he was. So, and I've been getting really pissed off. You're like one of the few shows, and I support your show. I was watching a show where they just had these giant pictures of Kohberger, and they're like, tonight we're going to have such and such on, and they're going to talk about being there in the courtroom. And I was like, typing, where are the pictures of the victims? Like, we all know what that jackass looks like, And so when I look at those kids, I always give you such long answers. When I look at those kids, I mean, I don't think about myself as a kid. I think of my kids because it's been so long since I was that age. But I just think of how innocent they are. And, you know, I know that you agree with this, Joel. Whenever people come in and start talking crap about Bethany and Dylan, I'm just like, you need to just get away. Because at 18, I was a different person. I'd been through a lot of stuff, but I still think the reason that no one did anything initially is because they could never in their life think that that is what happened.
Yes.
Ever. You know, like if that was my friend passed out, quote unquote, I would have been like, yeah, let's go get breakfast. She'll wake up in a while. Because you are just so innocent. These kids were such sweet kids. And so anyone who criticizes Dylan or Bethany, I'll leave the show or I'll just say something, because that's what hurts me so much is that innocent kids were just literally, like Amanda said, living their lives.
Yeah. Someone just had a comment. I can't believe that the family, Kohberger's family, hasn't put out like a really strong statement against him. This is not a popular take, but unless something is found out about the father, I think the family is, you know, they're victims in this too. But I mean, to that point, Amanda, that's, you know, I can't say that I feel an overwhelming sense of empathy towards them the way I do towards these victims. I mean, I do think that they raised a son that's very troubled, and obviously he has sisters, but I don't know. If you were the family, would you be handling this differently? Would you want to put out something to the public saying, look, we raised this person. He is our child. We don't condone anything. This is awful. It's horrible. Today we're thinking about the victims' families. Should they be doing that, do you think?
You know, we would like them to do that, in all honesty. I do think they're trying to digest it themselves too. But in reality, it sounds like there were signs. It's the fact that we hear things about like the sisters being like, hey, this description is very much like our brother. I've never thought anything like that with any of my siblings or any family member. Like, if their first thought is like, hey, that's actually like our brother, that's a sign. That's a red flag. And you guys not taking that seriously, look where we are today. So yeah, it does kind of go to show that mental health or whatever other red sign or red flag signs should be acknowledged and something should be done. And even, I mean, he moved here and was still kind of having problems with WSU. So this wasn't just like an out of the blue, all of a sudden behavior change. This has been a regular behavior, it sounds like, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is a great comment here from Dr. Who. I won't go through all the 86753. There we go. My kids love that song. Wednesday and potentially Thursday is going to be brutal. Everyone take care of yourself. Step away if you have to. No shame in not watching. Cindy, do you plan to watch?
Yeah. Oops.
I actually have it on my work calendar. It just the whole day is blocked out. I just lost my train of thought. Something about what Amanda was saying. Oh, well, I forgot.
It's okay. Yeah, Linda, that happens to me every 5 seconds. Don't worry. Linda, how about you? You going to watch? You going to tune into this?
I want to tune in. What time is it going to be exactly?
No, I think it starts at 9 a.m. Yours truly will be online by at least 3 in the morning.
I should be able to stream and see it. So I definitely plan on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Amanda, how about you? You going to watch it?
Oh yeah, I've watched everything so far. I've even gone in person to the in-person events. I was working with Alternatives of Violence when we went into the Kibbie Dome and handed out safety sirens for the meeting that they're having about the families being murdered and trying to digest everything that's happening. So yeah, I'm gonna pay attention. I mean, like I said, there's not a day that goes by that we don't think about them. Like this hit us as a whole. So yeah.
Yeah. COE, you have some sound in there. I don't know what, but let's just play it. And then we'll react.
You know, at this point, ready just
Stand by, everybody. Here it comes.
You know, at this point, ready just to move on, just to get this past us.
trying to catch up a little bit too. We expected to go to trial this summer, and I had 250 hours set aside, had my schedule, had things going. So it was a radical change for us. So now we're just trying to wrap our head around this new development, and we're still a family. You still got to take care of yourself. So we're moving on.
So, Linda, Steve is a little more, I guess, muted, for lack of a better word. He's been a little more vocal. I know with Ashley Banfield, he was a lot more worked up. You think he's maybe, I don't know, coming to terms with this is what's going to happen, and trying to, I guess, see the bright side of it. I mean, again, there's no way to judge these victims' families. If it was me, I think I'd want the same thing, to be honest. If it was my child, I think I'd want this guy to go before a firing squad, or, be able to get into that prison and do it myself if I had to. But unfortunately, there's no vigilante, or should not be vigilante justice in this country. But I guess when you watch Steve now, does your heart bleed for him?
It most certainly does. And I can absolutely see both sides of the people that felt some relief with this plea agreement. Okay, now there's no doubt anymore. And this is just, we're just going to see justice from this point going forward. But I can understand the grief of, like, I heard Steve Gonsalves say, what about what is my child's life worth? Isn't her life worth more than just raising his hand in court and saying, yes, guilty? So I think he has felt kind of robbed of really some understanding and explanation of this senseless, horrible thing that happened. But it's possible that he's coming to a little bit more of a place of peace about it. And it's almost like it still isn't quite over yet, but maybe this was supposed to happen. I'm not sure I can't really interpret what he's feeling, but I can just tell from his demeanor there. He's like, I'm accepting of this, and we're going to go forward as best we can. So that's kind of what I'm picking up from him.
IGG saying she's worried about Steve. Hopefully they're getting the care and the therapy that they should be getting through this entire process, because it is obviously going to be a very, very rough road. Amanda, from what I hear, Ethan Chapin's family is planning, I think, to spend the day on a lake, not go to the sentencing hearing. What do you think of that?
Good for them, honestly. I respect them tremendously. I can't even imagine what they're going through. I will say I did watch the Amazon Prime documentary that was released recently, and it really helped me get to know these students. And boy, it really helped me get to know the Chapin family. And oh gosh, the resiliency this family has and the strength that they have to just grieve together. Yeah, I good for them. Going to the lake, spending the day together as a family, as Ethan would love that.
Yeah. The COE has another soundbite. Let's play that. We'll get a few more reactions to the sound bites, and then we'll start to get some final thoughts in a few minutes.
It was very surreal. It was very emotional to hear it. Something that, I don't think that we were ever really prepared to hear or think that we would hear. So, yeah, it was hard. It was definitely hard. I wish that, he would have had to say, maybe their names other than just simple yeses and nos. But
why?
Just, I think it shows a little bit more accountability and taking, owning up to what he did, to have to say the victim's names, our daughter's name, not just yes, yes, yes. I just feel like that was a really easy way to admit his guilt.
Yeah, I agree. We want to see some sternness when you see 4 lives lost. He wasn't even asked to stand. It's like those are the type of things that we want to send a message. You know, if you come after kids, people are going to put their foot down and they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that those kids are, you know, whoever did that is held to the accountability, the highest that there is. But, you know, it was quiet.
And that's, you know, I think that's a really good point. The judge was kind of easy on Hitler, who comes across as very no nonsense, said, "Oh, you don't need to get up." No, you should stand your ass
Yeah.
up out of respect to the families, and maybe it'll be different tomorrow. I think Ann Taylor also realizes the amount of hate she's going to receive if she is consulting her client to just remain quiet and avoid it like a coward. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I agree, Steve Gonzalez from Mama Bear in Canada looks absolutely devastated. They are going to really grieve. Yeah, it's going to, you know, not only will Bryan Kohberger go to prison and kind of wither into nothingness, the families are going to lose the media spotlight. And I think that's going to be, it's been so intense for so long. And I can tell you, just as a reporter, just covering big stories, all you have to do is ask Carm, because whenever I would come back from a really big story that I covered for days or weeks, it's like an adrenaline letdown. It's like you're so used to the action, right? And it's hard. And just imagine being the family that everyone has been pursuing for, you know, years to get interviews with and talk to. And then once he goes away to prison, a lot of that's going to get quiet very quickly. And I think it's going to be tough on the families as well. So that is something to consider. COE, I see one other person like for a soundbite. Am I right about that? We have one more. In TV news, you have like an earpiece and they talk to you, but here I have no idea. Is that a yes, COE? Are you chasing my son around the house? Does he have? Let's see here. I thought I saw something. I think the COE had it, and I don't see it back there. So I'm just going to go on here. So we got some more information about how everything kind of unfolded. Ben Mogan, the father of course, Maddie Mogan, said that he was surprised to be asked about a plea deal on a Zoom call with prosecutors. He thought it was going to be a call about trial logistics. He says, "It's been this nightmare. They asked how I'd feel about a deal. I said, I'd want to heal. I'm dreading the trial." So prosecutors then apparently wrote to the families days later, confirming that the deal was expected. And obviously, this, Amanda, blindsided the families like Steve Gonzalez and Xana Kernodle. Steve said that they had just vaguely mentioned a possible plea deal. And then I think Steve Gonzalez is quoted as saying that Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, and I'm interested to see if we hear from him on sentencing day. We'll find out. But they vaguely, he says, Steve Gonzalez mentioned this possible plea deal. And then he goes on to say Bill Thompson cut his deal with the devil. So just back to the plea deal. I mean, again, how stunned, surprised, shocked, concerned were you that they cut this deal finally?
You know, I think we were all shocked. It kind of happened just sporadically. It felt like we were all just, oh, okay, a plea deal. So it really was kind of shocking. As a parent, I would probably say the same thing that Steve is saying. I would want more. But my education says that this actually was a good deal for Idaho, because otherwise it would be an ugly, ugly trial. Even though people want the details, I don't know if everyone's ready for all those details, in all honesty. That in itself, and then you got the never-ending appeals. It was going to get uglier and never ending for the families. And let's be real, the prosecutor's job is to not only get justice, but work for the state of Idaho. And that is his job, to get the deal done, to prosecute. And he did his job. It wasn't in the best view for the victims' families. I will say that, because I would probably feel the same way. But he did his job, and this is a form of justice.
Yeah. Cindy, Steve Gonzalez went on, just one or two more things, and we'll get final thoughts here. But Steve Gonzalez went on and said that Bryan Kohberger is too afraid to die, but he wasn't afraid to kill. The state is showing him mercy. He didn't show Kaylee any. I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that. And that's why I wouldn't be weeping if prison justice was exacted here. But do you think he's a coward that he killed and is now essentially doing all this to avoid the death penalty?
Absolutely. And that's one of the that's like one of the things that kind of sticks with me, because you see this a lot in a lot of these cases where the perpetrator does horrible things, the murderer does horrible things, and then Bundy did it too. When people were comparing him to Bundy, I was like, actually, they were saying something different. The comparison was like, Kohberger's going to trial. He's a lot like Bundy, but he hadn't made the plea yet. And then after he made the plea, I was like, do you see? Bundy was terrified of dying, and he made it very, very clear he did not want to die, by electrocution or whatever. And I know that you guys are old enough to remember that they held up the signs that said, "Let's have a Bundy queue."
Yeah.
Do you remember? Like,
I do.
People were delighted. I'm not saying that we need to do anything like that, but that Bryan is a chicken shit who went in and did exactly what he wanted to do. And I feel so bad for every family that's going through it, because as we all just said, all of us here are parents. If it was our own kid, we don't know, because we can't really put ourselves in Steve's place. We can just do it from our own perspective. But I would, oh God, I would want to see it. We joke about it at work. I hate to say it out in this big public venue, but we talk about it all the time, that we would love to be there to see the firing squad. He would be crapping in his pants.
Yeah.
So yes, he's a huge coward. He's a huge POS. And I did remember what I wanted to say. And we don't have a lot of time, and I don't want to take it up, but maybe some other time I'll come on and tell you. I worked at the grad school the same time Bryan did. So I learned some stuff. I got kicked out of meetings because the sheriff would come in. Like, there was all this weird crap going on in my department after this happened.
Which department?
The graduate school.
But which department in the graduate school?
Well, he's from the criminal justice department.
Yeah.
But the graduate school is an umbrella. So I worked in the grad school as a recruiter of students, and he was one of our teaching assistants. So the day, you remember, because I was on your show the day before.
Yeah. So don't hold. We got a couple minutes. Tell us what was going on.
Okay, so we got the message. I texted someone and I said, "Oh my God, it's one of our TAs." They said yes. They immediately took down his photograph. My daughter Jessica sent me his picture. I said, "I can't believe this guy is from WSU." Everyone went crazy. But one of the coolest things I found out that I couldn't talk about at the time that I can talk about now, this is not a surprise. He was a pain in the ass from day one. That came directly from his supervisor. He was from the moment he stepped on campus, he was a nightmare to everybody. But here's what I can tell you now that I couldn't tell you then. After he got put in the Latah County jail, they had not turned off his TA money yet. So he was about to get a paycheck in the Latah County jail, and our whole office went kaploo, 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 and they stopped that check. I just thought it was hilarious, right? It just goes to show you how ill-prepared all of us were for such a disaster to happen to this community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Cindy, how weird! Like, there are people in the chat tonight. My good friend Black Widor from the Republic of Ireland. There's someone in the chat from Germany, all over the world. How weird is it that Moscow Pullman became sort of the center of the true crime world, and that people from all over the place are interested in this case? It's not just you guys sitting at the University of Idaho or Washington State University.
I think it became really surreal for me when I saw when the first 3 sets of shows came out, 48 Hours, 2020, Dateline, they all did a show. 2020 was the best, by the way. They actually really they did such a good job representing Moscow. But seeing your own town on television is the weirdest thing in the world, especially if you're an old lady like me, where, when you're a kid, the local news, and you're like, my brother's on TV, to see your town on television for such a horrible, horrible reason. but you get a nostalgia too, because you're like, oh, look, it's the corner club. Oh, there's the breakfast club. When I see the photos of the students, I'm sure you guys do too, you know what their background is. I'm like, oh, they're at the breakfast club. We know
you can tell. Yep.
You can see the background, like, oh, they're at One World Cafe. So it's a very strange feeling.
I remember Nancy Grace, she must have sent one of her team to Walmart to get one of those tables, 6-foot tables, and set it there in the parking lot in front of the house. And she's getting ready with her files, and she's going to do the broadcast. And it's like, oh my God, this is just, I'm in Twilight Zone here, Yeah.
Yeah. Try getting yelled by her.
Joel, they had big signs saying "F you, Nancy Grace, get out of our town."
Yep.
I remember.
The move where
She did a show. She put like a table out in front of the house. People did not like that.
They turned her into a Girl Scout. There's a meme with her with the green beanie, and she's got Girl Scout cookies. It's very funny. Sorry, Nancy.
Yeah. So huge thanks to these three lovely women for coming on and kind of just walking down memory lane, which is a very sad thing to do in this particular case. But Amanda, aside from locking doors and all that, what do you think the community has, I don't know, either learned or gained? Has anything positive come out of this horrific story in the Palouse?
Well, I mean, definitely. We as a community look after each other. We have always done that, but even more so now. Really, this hurt all of our hearts here in this community, not just in Moscow, I should say, and Pullman. I mean, heck, even Coeur d'Alene, any kind of areas that the kids were from, but specifically here, we feel it. So, I mean, yeah, it's changed everyone's way of living in a sense. Everyone's more cautious, safe, but really we look after each other, and we don't ever want any of this to happen ever again, in all honesty. Like, this was traumatic, terrible, and it stole the innocence of the area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It definitely did. Linda, to you, I mean, it's the eve of the sentencing. And if you could speak to the Gonzalez family or the Chapins or the Kernodles or the Mogans, what would you want to say tonight to them?
I would want to say, we love you. You don't know us. We don't know you, but we love you. And this, as horrific as this was, it did remind us all how important community is. And I've never seen such an outpouring of community at the memorial events that I went to. It was, you could just feel the love from people. So that's what I take from this, is the love between us and the feeling of community of Moscow, and actually WSU and the U of I. It's kind of like brought them together, really, in a lot of ways, I would say. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's it. Yes.
Amanda just held up her shirt.
Yep,
show us what it says again. What does it say again? What's it say?
Spirit of the Palouse. So WSU and U of I have had football games against each other, but really it's in celebration of the schools next to each other. Like I said, we are two towns in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
We are a family. So I mean, even though the football games of each other haven't happened that many times, I think they had one recently once. But long story short, we are a family. We are a community, U of I and WSU. So like this was impactful to both of us.
Yes.
Amanda, you got to send me one of those shirts now, right?
I would love to. Definitely. Send me the address and I would love to send you one.
I'm going to hit you up for one. I remember after this all happened, I wanted something. I ordered a Vandal shirt online, and it was sent to me just so I could, wear it and feel connected, and I still have it. So I love that shirt. What is that?
Oh, it's a keychain. It's a keychain that I turned into
Vandals.
Because of Vandals, I know. Yeah, but I like that one. The community, the combination of the communities into one meme like that. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, that is awesome. So here's the woman, Cindy Hollenbeck, who reached out to me. I think originally she was watching Surviving the Survivor, but you lived in both Moscow and Pullman and worked at the University of Idaho and worked at Washington State University. So you've done it all, been to all these places. And therefore, I'm going to leave it completely open-ended. Your final thoughts. I mean, this is going to happen within the next, I don't know, 48 hours, less than that now. And it's going to be a chilling moment for everybody. So what are your words of wisdom, Cindy Hollenbeck, as we head in towards sentencing? Of course, I am here in Boise, and we're going to be bringing you everything, including some stories from the prison tomorrow, which I get to go to, which is going to be scary, but worthwhile. But Cindy, your final thoughts.
There's a first I want to say that more people should be like Stacy Chapin. Like I'm not a big crier unless I'm with my kids. I don't like looking weak. But I was crying through the second episode of the Amazon because I was just so heartbroken, and I mean I pale in comparison as a mom to Stacy Chapin. Just her entire everything she feels, her aura, the way she's so measured. So I feel like more people should be like Stacy Chapin. However, more people are more like Steve Gonzalez. That's not shade. That's the real, like those emotions are right out there. And I'm going to say what he said. You can't come to our town and kill our babies and think you're going to get away with it. That is how I feel. And I'm so scared to watch because it's going to be heartbreaking to hear their statements.
Yeah.
And I hate Bryan, and I think Bryan's going to get a big chubby listening to all the pain he caused because I think he's a sick, twisted individual.
Yeah.
But I want to be there. I want to be there for the families, and I feel really scared that I'm going to get super emotional at that. I feel so terrible for them. But you can't come to our town and kill our kids and then think you get away with it. And he didn't. And we all knew he did it from the beginning. Remember?
Yeah.
We all knew he was guilty, and then he had to say it.
There you go. You cannot come to Moscow or Pullman and kill these kids. You are going to pay, and that's what's about to happen to Bryan Kohberger. A huge thanks to Amanda, Cindy, Linda. Everyone stay strong. We're going to bring this to you live. We're here in Boise all week. Love you, America. Justice for these victims, and stay tuned. We will be here. Love you all. Have a great night, everybody.